1993 election was actually annulled with the late Chief MKO Abiola, judged the presumed winner. The election that was adjudged the most credible and the first in the history of Nigeria. We're looking at all of the struggles plus the declaration of June 12 as Democracy Day by the President Muhammadu Buhari just last week. A lot of reactions have triggered that development with a rowdy session at the House of Representatives last week. Lawyers talking about the legality, the family members talking about how they were excited about it, and of course, even victims of the June 12, 1993 elections are actually calling for some kind of compensation. Just yesterday, they held a rally somewhere in Ekpetedo, which was the 24th commemoration since the late MKO declared himself a winner of the election in 1994. We'll be looking at all of those matters on the show this morning. But first up, let's take a trip down memory lane and just feel the pulse of the nation days after the June 12 election. We'll be right back. Stay with us.
That for Abiola was the end of life, the glorious exit of rags to riches poor boy, who became a beacon of hope for the oppressed, a role model that hard work and good education is a surefire way to success. For Nigerians, it was the end of a traumatic experience in a long chapter of military enslavement. Abacha had held the people hostage for over 4 years, and their hope of victory had just evaporated like a steam trapped above a volcanic layer of superhot rock. For Nigeria, it was the easing of tension, the release of pressure from an overheated furnace, perhaps a new beginning for the nation. But for the military, it was the final disgrace, a tragedy of unimaginable proportion to a reputation that had been declining steeply and steadily since the invention of Babangida as president of the country. The greatness of the Almighty in the events after June 12 is the miracle of the 21st century for Nigeria. Abiola's death marked the beginning of a morbid entertainment in rhetorics, eulogies, both honest and fraudulent. The high and mighty participated fully. Obasanjo put up his saddest face to mark the occasion.
Us all, and particularly for some of us, who have been very close acquaintance and friend of the departed from our youth. We are in mourning, and there's not much one can say and one should say at this time.
From the United Nations came the foremost negotiators for the surrender of Abiola's secret mandate. Kofi Annan and Ibrahim Agboola Gambari, the intellectual who sold his conscience to the military for 6 pence.
I'm shocked by the news, as you can imagine. I saw him exactly a week ago today. I had met with him just after I had arrived.
Abiola was indeed an act of God, and all patriotic Nigerians should utilize this sad episode in the recent history of Nigeria to rededicate themselves to the overriding goal of establishing a democratic government.
And coming from supporters and family were comments indicating acceptance of the card fate had dealt them.
What we are fighting for. And what are we fighting for? True democracy in this country, true federalism, justice, fair play, and the observance of rule of law. It's not a personal struggle. It is a struggle that must bring democracy, must bring rule of law, must bring justice to this country.
They use my father as some sort of pawn holding on to him even while the people of Nigeria demanded his release. And that's too late. He stepped down. And what can I say?
So that's it. Shikena, the man to obtain democracy. But ironically, it was anarchists and non-democrats who hijacked it. They held it, squeezed it, sucked the juice out of it, and smacked it at those who worked for it. Hopes that there was a new weather in the parliament after Abacha was killed, when Emeka Ayamo told us, after meeting with the military under Abdullah, simply released.
Great lengths. Indeed, I talked at great lengths with the head of state about that question. And in the end, I am very optimistic that before Chief Abiola and all the other political detainees will be.
All right, welcome back from that trip down memory lane. Days after the controversial June 12th of 1993 elections, we had prominent Nigerians and of course some Africans speaking concerning the particular day, the significance. You saw the former President Olusegun Obasanjo, you saw the Commonwealth Secretary General, former one, that is Emeka Nwoko, and of course former UN Secretary General Kofi Annan, among others, talking about the relevance of that particular day. A lot is happening concerning June 12th today, specifically in Ogun State, where a work has been done by the state government to commemorate the day, and of course to honor the late MKO Abiola. And in Abuja, as we speak, there's an event going on concerning how the honors that were conferred on those Nigerians will be done today. But we will start this discussion specifically from Abeokuta this morning. We have Nero Malolu. He is the CEO of Boat Communications. Many thanks for joining us on Galaxy today. All right, we are looking at the struggle so far and the lessons and to the learn from it. You were a part of that particular struggle, but let me just start by asking how you received the announcement, the proclamation by the president on Wednesday last week. Was it like a long time coming? Is it justice that finally was given to Nigerians who were part of that struggle?
For me, justice is served, no matter how late or how long. What we are benefiting from today, the freedom we have, was actually fought for and died for by Abiola. So it doesn't take rocket science to know that eventually justice will be served.
Well, a journalist, or you still are a journalist, and how would you say this proclamation by the president, what's the impact of journalism in Nigeria? Because a whole lot of journalists were in the forefront of that particular struggle. Many of them have died, and a lot of them are still alive right now, still talking about how to move the nations forward. So what impact exactly does it have on journalism in Nigeria?
I think, you see, if any society is going to make progress in this world, the media needs to play a very, very important role. The media is very key, to social justice in any nation. So I don't think it's anything very strange when journalists, come to the forefront of fighting for democracy. Because when that happens, what they do is that they create an avenue for the nation to succeed, for there to be freedom, for there to be economic, progress, for there to be social justice. So I think the journalists were playing their role, it's unfortunate, some of them died, some of them were in prison and what have you, but it's part of the, price that you pay, to have a nation that is worthy of being called a nation. And I think in that way, they have, played their roles. There are so many other journalists who suffered, during that period that you didn't get to know of. But the point at issue basically is that today we have democracy, and then we are very happy that gradually the nation, is moving towards, a state of egalitarianism. The point at issue is this. When you have democracy, if it is the worst of democracy, it is better than the best of military dictatorship. Now, so as far as I'm concerned, I think we're, making progress. It is not the best. It is not the best. But of course, gradually we're making progress. The fact that the president had come in, last week, to do what he has just done, to make the announcement, it shows that gradually, we're on the path, of getting to the place that we're supposed to be. So for me, was really, revealing. I learned a lot of things, and for me, I know that the prison taught me what life is all about. So for me, in every material particular, I think is a kind of a situation in my life that I begin to understand that life, what life exactly means, for the people, and for me, and for the nation.
Journalism, I still want you to look at it from way back. I mean, during the military rule, and now we are under the democracy rule. Would you say that journalism is thriving as it should be, saying that it is a fourth estate in the realm? Do you think we have the privileges that we should have as journalists to practice whatever it is that's been, I mean, according to the Constitution, we have some kind of rights. Do you think journalism is there yet? Or do you also see this as a way we're declaring June 12 as a democracy day, and then all the struggles and the things that came with it or comes with June 12 is going to reflect in journalism as well? Is going to reflect in journalism as well.
Yeah, let me thank you very much for that question. The society as it is right now has not gotten to the level where it's supposed to be. When I say that, that includes the fact that journalism hasn't gotten to the point that it's supposed to be. If you compare the atmosphere, the environment in which we practice here, is not really palatable, in the sense that we do not have, the required law for which we are supposed to practice. That's number one. Number two, part of the problem has to do with media owners themselves. Because somehow, because we didn't take care of what we need to take care of, the sectoral, issues affecting, our profession. So what has happened, what you find is that most media owners have turned themselves into appendages of government, whether they're federal or state. And that's not supposed to be in a place where we need to practice and do exactly what we need to do. What should happen is that, we should make whatever that we make from advertisement, but that's not the case, as you know. So that affects, our profession and the way it is practiced. Now, besides, let us go to the area of law. You see, we have not been able to challenge the authority. There has never been any Supreme Court judgment that is very fundamental in this country regarding practice of journalism. We're always afraid to go to court. So nobody is going to give us this right. We're going to get the right by ourselves by fighting for it. In America and some other places, people go to court. We've never tested this before. We never engaged the National Assembly. They just do whatever that they like. Everybody, whether at the state level, local government, federal government level, people are governing by whims and caprices. So we need to sit together. We need to get down to do things by ourselves, for ourselves. We need to have a common platform. So, you see, journalists are suffering in this nation because of all of these problems. So, you see, journalists are suffering in this nation.
All right, looking at the June 12th struggle since 1993 up until now, 25 years after, one of the perspectives that actually came to the fore is the bravery in the face of death. Many Nigerians, were like daredevil. They were go-getting, and they actually stood by their rights, acting on it, and demanding that Chief MK, the late Chief MK Abiola, be declared the presumed winner, or the winner rather of that particular election. But in all of this, don't you think this is a time for maybe Buhari to heed to the call of restructuring, because a lot of Nigerians stood with one voice, asking for one thing?
You are very correct. Let's go back, to memory lane. Why did Abiola, put himself forward to contest the election in 1993? I think it was simply because, in those days when the military, were in power, they just do whatever that they like. Are you following me? So education, social services, nothing was there. As a matter of fact, that was the time when Nigerians began to say, that the second name of our country is corruption. You follow? So what happened was that the man begins to think that, look, let us do something, let us change the way that we are. Let us, make the government to work for the people. Government does not work for the people in Nigeria. Government works for those who are in government. You look at it, look at the colonial setup in Nigeria. The army, the police, they protect those who are in power. So those days, we call them army of occupation. What has changed now? Nothing really. So you are quite correct. We need to restructure this country. We need to actually go deep down and then let people be in control of their own resources. For instance, it's problematic. When you have, for instance, in a local government, in Ijebu-Ode, for instance, and then the man who is the DPO, comes from Abia. He doesn't know the people. He doesn't know, the environment. So it is better that you put people in charge of their own affairs. So if they fail, they know they have failed. What the problem you have in Nigeria basically is ethnic distrust, tribal distrust. People don't trust the other person and what they feel. It's simply because they are not getting their fair share, what they consider their fair share, of national resources. So what happens when they are in charge of their resources and what they feel, there's going to be peace, there's going to be development. You see, government is about giving social services to the people, protecting them. If you are not doing that, we are not doing anything. You see, just like leadership is about taking the people to where they have never been or where they are afraid to go. So for me, I think to restructure this country is going to be, a better way for us to go. So there will be less of ethnic or tribal distrust. People will know that they're going to work before they eat, and then everybody will contribute his own fair share, to national cake. Nigeria is the only country where we talk about sharing cake, national cake, without talking about baking it. Nigeria is the only country. Look at our constitutions. You find something about sharing, and sharing. There's nothing about baking. Who's going to do the work? We're not talking about that. So that is part of the problem.
Before we take this break to Abuja right now, a lot of people have argued that, let me just try and fill the polls of people from the southeast. Some said some other leaders came before President Muhammadu Buhari and failed to do this particular declaration, including former President Olusegun Obasanjo, who actually is a Yoruba man. What do you have to say specifically concerning that?
I think in politics, when you are in position of power, there are a lot of things that they're going to be confronted with that's not going to be known to people who are outside of government, So I do not know exactly why, former President Obasanjo didn't do it. I'm sure that he will have his own reason why he wasn't able to do it. It's just like saying, why didn't Obama release the black woman who was just released by Trump, the other day? You don't know why. I don't know why. It may not be, and it's part of the reason why people are saying Buhari did it for political reasons. and what have you. I don't care about all of that. What I think, is that he has done it, he has done it. The person who didn't do it because, of whatever reason that might be. But for me, the most important thing that has been done, and we need to move forward from here, and, go from here and then correct all the wrongs. When we have a system whereby wrongs are corrected no matter how long it takes, then people will begin to be afraid to do what is wrong when they are in office.
As much as we can take right now from our end that Abeokuta in Ogun State will be going back to Abeokuta in the course of the program. It's still Galaxy. Today we are looking at the struggles for June 12th and the lessons thereof. We'll take a quick break. We'll be back to talk some more. Stay with us.
Nigeria on the march again. On the march again. Looking for Mr. President. On the march again. MKO is our man. MKO is our man. Now him go make our country better. He's the man. For progress and a better tomorrow. He's our man. Make you vote for him, my brother. I say make you vote for him, my sister. He's our man. Everybody make una vote for him. He's the man. Now him be our only hope. He's our man. I say now him be hope for tomorrow. He's the man. On the march again. On the march again. SDP the people's choice. On the march again. MKO is the man. Now why for this life, oh, now so palava. I tire for this problem, I tire for life, oh. Guinea, no work, no food, no house, no life. This small water, then they bring us so dirty, they pull am. This small money, I they get now social transport, they chop am. School low, na headache, hospital, no work. I tire for life, oh. My brother, waiting you they think, oh. My sister, help don't come. SDP, MKO, Kingibe, action. MKO, Kingibe, SDP, progress. Abiola na the hope, SDP na the party to solve our problem and better our life. Oh, MKO, 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 action. Abiola, 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 progress. Now he be the hope for better tomorrow. Now why for this life, oh, now so palava. I tire for this problem, I tire for life, oh. Guinea, no work, no food, no house, no life. This small water, then they bring us so dirty, they pull am. This small money, I they get now social transport, they chop am. School low, na headache, hospital, no work. I tire for life, oh. My brother, waiting you they think, oh. My sister, help don't come. SDP, MKO, Kingibe, action. MKO.
All right, welcome back. It's still Galaxy today, and we're looking at the struggles for June 12th and, of course, the lessons to be learned thereof. We have a guest here in Lagos, and we'll be talking with him shortly. Ujay.
Yes, the guest we have here in the studio is Barrister Dotun Hassan, President, Yoruba Council of Youth. Good morning and welcome to Galaxy
Yes,
today.
good morning. Good morning, listeners.
Okay, so June 12th looks like another Yuletide season. It seems like it's a time to celebrate. It's a time to relax. It's really now that the president just recently said it's going to be marked as Democracy Day, and a whole lot of others were awarded in this. So when this news came to you, what was your reaction?
Well, I think I have to go back to a memory lane of the last time I was in your studio. That was May 29. the new, the aborted and Democracy Day for the new one, which means our agitations, our clamor over 25 years ago now, because June 12 was not an accident of history. It's by, there was a process of the military vacating power, and which there was a promise in 1990, and based on skepticism of IBB then, with pressure from activists and pro-democracy personnel, and leading to an election of Chief M.K. Abiola, and the election was free and fairest, even as acknowledged by the person that annulled it. But basically, we have to come back to a grace of appreciation first, because for President Muhammadu Buhari to have unilaterally, because if that idea was to be given, was to be thrown to the open, I'm so sure it would be shut down on arrival. But to have unilaterally consulted within himself and given Nigeria a hope, because 93 stands for hope, and that is a rejuvenation of that ideology of a restructured Nigeria, ideology that battered what is called abolition of poverty. Those are the principles of Chief M.K. Abiola. But as I've rightly argued, that not just we're happy that we have a Democracy Day, indeed a Democracy Day, that is June 12th. Yes. We have more that is impregnated in this day, and that is this administration ready to absorb the manifesto of Chief M.K. Abiola from today? Are they ready to begin to dispense democratic dividends to the people as it ought to be? Yes. So those are critical questions. And not just the fact that we are also in appreciation of the conferment, which is a ceremony going on in Abuja today to mark the birth of that anniversary, that the GCFR to His Excellency Chief Moshood Olawale Kashimawo Abiola and Chief Gani Faremi, and as well as Ambassador Babagana Kingibe. To us, it's a mixed breed of reaction. Yeah. Politically, there is a scorecard somewhere. Okay. Somebody is ready to score a card. Okay. Legally, there are issues that are also abounding. Okay,
before we go into all the legal and legalese and all of that, let's talk about the history now. Let's look at historical perspective. It's been 25 years since this struggle started, and it has actually culminated in the declaration, or proclamation rather, Wednesday last week. Do you think the president is trying to play with time to try to or try to right the wrongs that have been done over the years, or just trying to pacify a cross-section of people?
We run an experimental democracy in Nigeria. That is not, it's a nascent growing democracy, regardless of number of years that we've been growing up as a child, because I still see our democracy still crawling, because basically the timing of this announcement culminated to the effect of, in the media, it's just like something to quell a burning flame. That is what this day was able to succeed. That's what the present administration has succeeded to do, to really pull us back out of our hopelessness, out of our regret, out of our frustrations. So June 12th coming back to us now is like a dream come true to one, not just Abiola family now, but to the whole of Nigeria, to the whole of Africa, to you and I that voted on that day, to the departed soul, because we are talking about souls that died on the street. We are talking about schools that were shut down. We are talking about, from that day onward till now, we've never gotten it right, because education is down from that era. Our dollar begin to mesmerize. Our economy has not really woken up from that trenches. So a whole lot of things have been, a whole lot of repercussion and consequential effect is still ripples in our bedridden as of today. But basically speaking, we have to look at who who really orchestrated this annulment? Who are the dramatic personnel? Who killed MK Abiola? Because there was a June 12th, and there was a killing of the president.
Yes.
So
there was
therefore,
also a declaration
then there was
after by him in 1994.
So yes, that was the Ekpetedo declaration.
Yes.
These are, it's more like a wounded lion. Abiola was like a wounded lion, seeing himself as a messiah. He foresaw that he's going to die. He knew what the kind of risk he was taking. Because if it were to be by virtue of negotiation, he just have to relieve and sign that he is not interested. That was the negotiation on his table. But definitely, for a masses-driven art who love his people, and that is one thing Nigeria must begin to learn. You, as a leader, you must come first with that art of love, devoid of your manifesto. You must be ready to proffer solutions to immediate people's challenges. And that is not to be with cosmetic spilt milk projects. No, we are talking about genuine deliverables on the people's table. What are we talking about? Nigeria is yet to get a brand new people's constitution. Why are we not ripe for that? Why do some must be cloaked into the barracks? We must still be the aprons of some generals. The generals, until the generals sit and decide our fate, that is when we can know our tomorrow, either better or going wrong. So we believe that this is just to open a Pandora's box of some other issues that are going to abound by it. Politically, I believe it's to rejig a hope in President Muhammadu Buhari that yes, he can still perform. But for me as a person, I represent a sector, a downtrodden sector of the Nigerian youth. Go and look at the faces of Nigeria. There is no their faces.
Why not?
Because they are downtrodden. There is no job. There is jobs insecurity. There is the social justice values is dead.
Okay, sorry to butt in here. Well, most Nigerians, specifically the youth, would say one of the reasons then why they voted the late MKO Abiola was not just because he was a Muslim, he was actually de-tribalized, he was actually de-religious. He came with this particular manifesto of welfare for the poor. A whole lot of Nigerians see him as someone who actually will be selfless, and just continue to bring them, to where they should be, despite the issues that actually have, bothered the country over the years. Do you see all of those playing out now in this present realities?
No, well, definitely you see an Abiola, if you look at Abiola, you see a philanthropist par excellence. If you look at Abiola, you see a definition of a true Democrat. If you look at Abiola, you see a revival of hope. And that was why, when he was coming for that election, he never brought unnecessary mantra that people need to be redefining and looking for what definition it is in the dictionary. He only gave something you can see, something you can be able to have testimonials for. Before coming into politics, he has been affecting people's lives. There is no sector of the economy that Abiola has not touched. So those are what made him, why people love him more. That is why people can go down the street and lay their life for him.
So how come our leaders of now cannot
Because
learn
our
from
leaders of nowadays are not selfless, they are self-centered. Okay. Go to the state, go to the federal, go to the local government. Ordinary councillorship person, look at their characters, look at the kind of people we have breeded and we have succeededly imputed in the power. And unfortunately, it's until when we demonetize our politics. Presently, today, I don't know how we're going to survive that odd. But I believe there is a time will come, whereby real governance, real people will begin to emerge. But I believe strongly, Nigeria is a very strong nation. That we must be ready to pull up our heart of sacrifice. 2019 might not be our immediate solution. We cannot be too eager to drink a very hot water. We have to allow it to simmer down and begin to see how we can really swim into.
Okay, but still talking about the struggle and those who are going to be honored and those who's been honored all through the struggle. The case of Kudirat Abiola, I mean, some people will still feel that she was also part of the struggle.
Definitely, she's a messiah of the struggle.
Okay, so but she wasn't mentioned among those.
Because just like some arguments.
Do you think is a gender thing?
No. like the kind of governance system, you must understand our psyche of reasoning in this country. People wake up, there's never been any policy that go through the right tunnel of process.
Permit me to bring
Definitely.
a case where we understood that during the Ebola case, Dr. Akunyelia was actually someone who gave her life to see that Ebola.
Dr.
Adadebo, rather.
Yes.
And they also have the NAFDAC woman.
Yes.
Akunyili. And it looks like when it comes to rewarding and awarding people, it seems that they tend to award more of the men who they seem to be in the struggle. So is this reflected in the case of Kudirat Abiola?
Not at all. It's just a loss of memory of those that are in hands of power. Loss of memory, yeah, loss of memory, because Nigeria himself, we are always short-lived memories. Even our bad times were mostly short-lived, because immediately our episodes are overridden by a new event, and that has really affected our views. Looking at the ways awards have been shared in the time past, the kind of people that gets awards are the same corrupt reading individuals in the system. Awards in this country is not to be given to people of value, people that have died, unsung heroes, people that just, how many traffic wardens have been given a award in Nigeria? None, except for those that have one or two connections. So, but as far as Kudirat Abiola's case, we are still going to make case for that. That's why we are here. We are calling on the federal government to look into the records and archives of those that have really laid down their life for the survival of democracy. Definitely, there are a lot of people who have committed themselves into it, and Mrs. Alaja Kudirat Abiola is one in a million who have done more. Let me tell you something that is very important. She is the heart of Abiola in the entire struggle. She breathed, she has that feminist angle to every interest of that struggle. Even while the husband was in incarceration, she was always in the media with the Kudirat radio. That is something that propelled Kudirat radio. It isn't just to be yelling at the international community. No, it is that was one of the bane that brought his life, that cut his life short, because they see her, they saw at that particular point in time as a stumbling block. Definitely, you know the kind of government we had then. But one critical thing, the perpetrators of this evil, have they been brought to book? How do we really perceive our nation? Definitely, it's a zigzag system. We are crawling from a military era we handed over into another military man. It was like a handed batting. So we even after when we are entering into 1999, we battled with militocracy, with Chief Olusegun Obasanjo. It took him. It would have been a reviewed ethos of democracy if Chief Olusegun Obasanjo has done what President Muhammadu Buhari is doing. And it is not an afterthought. So I don't want, I want to further advise that President Muhammadu Buhari should not see himself as a god over this decision. He should just see himself as performing his role and duty, just like what he has been elected for. He's not actually doing us a favor. The principal duty of his office is the role he's playing, and we are demanding more. The expectation of Nigeria is just like we are about 30% of our expectation. Okay. Definitely, our hopes will be further ticking in him. He still have a whole lot of life span within his tenure.
Okay, but with all this that is going on now, in your own opinion, how does this reflect on justice?
Definitely, justice is a very bitter pill. We crave for peace, but we are not prepared for justice. If justice were manifestly seen to be done, one will have to see that there is no sacred cow. If justice were to be done, the present administration of President Muhammadu Buhari played a huge role under head of state Sani Abacha. He even acclaimed him as one of his jewels, even in this present administration. So there was no total condemnation of this administration, or there is no way you have to insulate all the personnel that participated in that evil. People like IBB, definitely they've been telling different side of the story as it suits them.
Yes.
People like Olusegun Obasanjo, what story do they have to tell? We've listened to Hamza Mustafa about his intended absorption of the evil he was part and parcel of. We are talking about what role did Abdul Salami play? Who and who are the orchestrators of this evil? We are not pointing an accusing finger, but we are using this medium of today as our democracy day for Nigerians to go into sober reflection, for us to pray, for us to begin to see how best we can galvanize a nation, for us we can see how we can manifest opportunity out of our travails.
Right,
this should be
looking at
one
all
of
the
our
issues now. Okay, some southwest states declared today public holiday, and a school of thought believes that the president is actually trying to soothe some national wounds. But one of the issues that have actually arisen from all of this is the key contender in that particular election who contested under the National Republican Convention,
Yes,
right?
yeah.
That's an NRC, that's Tofa. He's saying that he has no issue with the president actually conferring that particular award. That's Alhaji Bashir Tofa. He said he's not opposed to the decision of the federal government to recognize Abela, who was the candidate of the Social Democratic Party, as the winner of the election. But he rather said he doubted if the move was based on fair play and law. What's your reaction?
Yeah, politicians will always reason like a politician.
So it's just politics, right?
That is politics for you. Where is Tofa when we are agitating
but
for
some people
June
think that
12?
he should also be honored.
Ooh.
Some people.
No,
should be.
we shouldn't just see the national honor as a market thing to be shared to everyone. We are talking about villains. Awards are not like the kind of chieftaincy that has been paraded around by anybody. Awards are meant for villain. Definitely not everybody. If I were to screen the award, I only choose 2 people who have more survived, and we replace Babagana Kingibe with Kudirat Abiola. Definitely, if I were to be on the screening table, because one, I always want to see where is Kingibe in the whole of the struggle. Those are critical questions. We cannot begin to fade our eyes off reality. Reality is so bitter. That's why I say justice to be manifested seems to be done. It's painful. Definitely it had its odd and gains. But if you have to look critically, now Nigeria needs to begin to come to a drawing table. Definitely this is a ripe moment for us to hit the president with our fundamental demand for restructuring. Definitely this is a ripe moment for our legislators to begin to reason with human hearts, with focus, with the vision that is expected of them in order to stabilize the polity. Because the polity, as far as we are concerned, beyond today, as from tomorrow, what drum are we expecting to be in the polity? Is it the same drum of insecurity that has been our bane before now? Yes. Or is it the drum of our economy still trying to revive its focus? Or is it the drum of the intra-party or the inter-party wars and attrition that has been part and parcel of our polity? So we need to begin to see how we can balance this struggle. And June 12th is not a Southwest thing. We have to correct that impression. June 12th, the announcement of June 12th has pacified various ethno backgrounds of various segments of the society. From the students' angle, they lost more into June 12th. They are the foot soldiers of June 12th. A lot of things were being done to mitigate and castigate and militarize against this sector. From the core journalists who are the front bearing the brunt of facing the bombs and the tear gas and all. I was on here earlier in the morning. I was with some villains of that struggle. One of them had his leg cut through the struggle. One of them was tear gas. His 2 eyes were blinded. So these are people that have suffered. Those are people we expect to be given the award. Those are people we expect the president to search around for and say, okay, from 1st of January, I have a Christmas gift to give to these people. These are people we expect to be called upon. There is a need for a reabsorption of Abiola's policy. That's why we say not just conferment of that honor, but naming some significant places. We are looking at the International Conference Center. There's nothing beyond the government to name it as Democratic Center.
Okay, fine.
So,
talking about demands right now, a lot of people, from some family members of the late M.K. Abiola, civil society, and of course, just different schools of thought, demanding that, aside from the conferment of the honorary award to the late M.K. Abiola, that some other, rights and some other privileges should be accorded to him, even posthumously, as per things, benefits that he should enjoy. A lot of people have been talking about that. Looking at the fact that the Chief Ernest Shoneko breached the June 12 struggles per se, but even up to now, he's still entitled to some, will I say, perks, as a former president as it is. Don't you think the same thing should go to the former, to late MK Abiola as well?
Let me say something. We are, from 1999, we battered into a new law. And that new law is what gave birth to the administration. It was only this administration that retroactivated its intent before the advent of the democracy we are into now. But definitely, one of the critical things is that we just have to really balance our interests. We need to really prioritize our purpose. As far as Nigerians are concerned, we are more united as a people based on one, we have common struggle of survival. And that should be one of the critical issues we need to be using today to address issues. And that's why I've not want to really spend much time on the woes, because legally speaking, if today were to be interpreted legally, is that there have to be a proper handing over to whoever won election on that day.